All right, bipolar disorder is another type of mood disorder. It was once called manic depressive disorder because it has these two polar opposites, depression and mania. Now, one thing to make sure you're very clear on is that mania refers to a period of hyper elevated mood that is euphoric, giddy, easily irritated, hyperactive, impulsive, overly optimistic, and even grandiose. Mania does not refer necessarily to happy. Who are manic are not necessarily happy. Now, they might come off as that on the surface because of this giddiness and this euphoria that they're experiencing. Okay, but mania and happy do not mean the same thing. Okay. Now, the thing with bipolar disorder is they have these contrasting symptoms, okay, and they cycle through. They start with depressed moods, feeling stuck, feeling down. They have exaggerated pessimism, social withdrawal, lack of felt pleasure in activity and no initiative, difficulty focusing, fatigue, and excessive desire to sleep. And on the other side, they have mania, euphoric, giddy, easily irritated with exaggerated optimism, hypersociality and sexuality, delight in everything, impulsivity and overactivity, racing thoughts, the mind won't settle down, and little desire for sleep. Okay, so with bipolar disorder, you see this cycle. Okay, you cycle through the downs and then you come back to the ups and then you come back down to the downs. Now, the problem is that mania is so physically exhausting that then when you go down, the downs start to become a little lower, and then the manias start to become a little higher, okay, and it gets into kind of a vicious, exhaustive cycle. So many successful and kind of famous people have lived with the ups and downs of bipolar disorder. For instance, people have said that Beethoven, Van Gogh, Sylvia Plath, all of these people kind of suffer from this idea of bipolar disorder. And some speculate that the depressive periods gave them ideas and the manic episodes gave them creative energy. So, are there any evidence of mood swings there? Well, that's, it's hard to do sometimes a post-mortem type look at people, but it does seem to be a high proportion of highly creative people that seem to suffer from bipolar disorder. Okay, now what about bipolar disorder in children and adolescents? Okay, does bipolar disorder show up before adulthood and even puberty? Many young people have cycles from depression to extended rage rather than mania, and the newest DSM, may have a new diagnosis for those kids, disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. We were seeing a huge upswing in bipolar disorder in children and adolescents, but they weren't quite fitting the manic. Rather, it was more of a rage issue. So we've now kind of adapted, and rather than diagnose these kids with bipolar disorder, we're kind of adding this new diagnosis of disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, meaning that they have a difficult time regulating their moods and they're cycling in from depression to rage. Okay, so again, our big things to make sure that you understand with bipolar disorder, make sure that you are clear on what the definition of mania is and that it is not happiness. Okay, and then also that you understand the contrasting symptoms between depressed mood and mania, and then also make sure that you take a look at the differences between the depressed moods of bipolar disorder and then the major depressive disorders symptoms, because they're not quite the same thing. Very similar.